A kind day to you all, I'm Kinsmarck, and I've returned to Survarium to field test a few weapons. The Socom 16, the HK UMP45, and in an alternate loadout slot, the VZ58, which I have also equipped with a sidearm OTS-2 Kiparis, cause I have spec'd myself with the Terminator tree, meaning I can carry two primary weapons at the same time. And since I've already levied my critical commentary regarding the recent state of the game in the previous episode, I'll keep my objective this time to simply putting these respective weapons through their paces and hunting a few rival stalkers. So let's have a look at them. As for the Socom 16, I can't say I'm entirely fond of these irons, as I'm simply not a fan of peep sights, I'm sorry to say. Because they tend to obfuscate one's target, which, for reflexive target acquisition, is kind of detrimental. If nothing else, though, I can appreciate the quality of the texturing, because you can actually make out some of the patterning on that rear sight. Also, the sound effect for this one is a little on the anemic side. Because for a weapon that fires, if I'm not mistaken, a 30-06, either that or a 308, it doesn't seem as though it sounds as powerful as it ought. Well, he just got lit the hell up. Hi, who are you? You chucked a grenade. Alright. So I'll see. Whoa, alright, so yeah, that took several shots. Then again, at this stage and gear level, certain weapons can, in fact, fail to penetrate through some of these higher tier armors. Oh, I wish this had an actual optic, because those irons, they keep reflexive target acquisition at a very challenging sort of rate. Alright, whoop. Almost shot a comrade in the spine. Ah! Alright, so 1 kill, 1 casualty. I can accept this. So, how about my sidearm for this particular loadout? The HK UMP45. Whose irons, I know, for the real-world version, are also a little lackluster in terms of my appreciation for them, although these actually aren't too terrible. I can likely live with this. Oop, hi there, I see you over there. Ah, the recoil skips around a little, although that was certainly outside the ideal range for that particular weapon. So let's see. If I charge ahead and simply aggravate the front lines, how will that work out for me with the UMP in my hands? We shall see. Alright. Move on some. Uh-oh. I have a little German hardware that... Whoop! Ha-ha! Is seeking stalker souls to collect! Ow! Alright. Fair play to you! Alright, so, for the sake of actually keeping on task, and checking into all of the weapons slated for this episode's testing, let's now try the VZ58, shall we? I've encountered this on multiple occasions. I have received slaughtering deaths at its hands. I've also spectated on a few people using it, and I like that kind of elevated sight pattern. I think it's the angle at which the rear sight sits, which gives it a very clear, clean, and open sort of sight pattern. Very little in the way of one's target. The controllability is a little stiff. Alright, I like it. This is feeling a little like the Valmet in terms of performance. I can hardly approve more. I'm also kind of hoping that, as Vostok have stated, that one of the next large updates coming to Survarium will include weapon customization to a greater extent. I can only assume that entails attachments and such. And so, one, I would like to see, like the MSBS Radon there that he was using, the ability to detach those and to attach optional optics onto, say, those rails, which you can see at the foregrip end of this particular rifle, and simply customize one's weapons a little more. Because yes, one can statistically modify them. However, a little more practical modification and attachments and accessories would, I think, go a long way. In terms of adding things like suppressors, say, extended barrels, adding even shortened barrels. The ability to Obrez a Mosin, for instance, and to use an Obrez Mosin sidearm. Can we put that to a vote? Can we just all sound off in the comments about how much we want Obrezes? Because I know certain people at Vostok keep track of this channel and they check the comments. Because I've conversed with them in the past. So can we make that message reach Vostok's ears? That we want Obrezes? Because that just sounds radioactively peachy. Oh, ah! I wasn't sure whether... Yeah, him. That I saw in the lower corner of my periphery. I wasn't sure whether he was friendly. I received the answer I did not want. Anyway. I think I'm kind of subconsciously favoring this rifle over the others. Because I'm simply enjoying its stopping power and controllability. Alright. The grenade killed him. Also, I am a sucker for some pretty wooden furniture. It's the simple things in life. Ah! Also, that's one of the new changes, the fact that the lasers on claymores are a little more visibly obvious. And finally, as well, the RGO grenades received a little nerf as well. They're no longer the room wipers they were. Come on, I know you're there. Come on. Just here in the shrubbery. All I need is an s.t.a.l.k.e.r, and I can mutter clever girl as soon as they do that. Alright, I tried. Damn, I think he actually hadn't noticed me until I started firing. So note to me, that's actually a decent little hiding spot. And also, I should change loadouts on the event of my next death! Because I know I've hardly tested the Socom. I'm just subconsciously favoring this one! Alright. Well, I've at least severely injured... Ooh, that's a new mask! I am kind of a fan of the new masks, as I think I mentioned in the previous episode. Because not only am I a fan of simply more variety in terms of armor and therefore aesthetic selection, it also means that's one more piece of equipment one can statistically employ and modify. Which was one of the things that kept certain helmets from performing very well, as it meant that in employing them, one was essentially sacrificing one of one's equipment slots to enjoy the actual statistics from. I am not exactly performing very well. Part of that I can, unfortunately, I think, criticize the new animations for, because they're so jerky that it's sometimes difficult to actually keep track of someone's movement. Because sometimes, especially when they transition from walking in one direction to another, it almost seems as though they kinda teleport a couple of frames over. And it makes keeping track of a target kinda challenging, and not necessarily in a very realistic way. Alright, let's see. Whoop. Ah! Is it just me, or did it seem like I got framed for that one? Either that, or the fire rate on that thing is simply so tremendous that it seemed as though I was. And for those who aren't aware of what I mean, framed is when there's enough latency such that it seems as though one is killed in a single frame's worth of time. As the time it takes for all of the shots to connect is less than the time it takes for the connection. So I am not doing well. Kind of at all. Alright. Let's see. I think I'll flank around to the other side, and I'll attempt to keep things a little more careful. Because they're pressing hard. I just wish I had, like, a 3x magnification on this thing. And that it did more damage. There we are, finally! I think that's possibly my first kill with the Socom. I may have already had that. Hi. Come on, around that corner. Around that corner. I need some fire rate at this range. I know you're right around that corner. You there. Ah! Sorry! I didn't kill you. I just kind of shot you a little. My mistake! Whoa. Where did you come from? You kind of startled me. Alright. Whoa, no, 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 no. Hip fire! Protect me, hip fire! He died. I didn't kill him. I don't know who killed him. At least he's dead. Okay, that was a friendly. Alright. So at this range... Was that a grenade? That was a grenade! Alright. That was an RGO. I can still handle this. I saw you! Come on, round that corner again! No, 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 not like that! Alright. That's kind of a sexy reload animation, not gonna lie. Ah! I'm always a fan of any of those where the catch is such that one can just kind of slap it and it'll actually catch. Also, that helmet kind of reminds me of the helmets from the Master Stalkers of the Eponymous series, which, I suspect, is entirely intentional. I know I saw someone. Where'd he go? Oh. On the floor. Alright. Whoa. No, no, no. Can I pull this off? Hit you. Hit you again. Yeah! Alright. So, I can't quite snipe with it, however, with care and precision, I can still act as a marksman with it. Oh, alright. Whoa! Ah! Die! Why won't you die? Because you're armed with an s.t.a.l.k.e.r. Alright. That seems significantly higher tier equipment, if I'm IDing it correctly, than what I have. Because while the matchmaker has received some work, it's still not entirely ideal. However, the player community is simply so limited that it's sometimes kind of inevitable that one will encounter significantly higher level players than oneself. 30 seconds remaining. So, I think it's time for a UMP charge. Cause what else am I doing with my life? What little remains of it. Ah! Very little, apparently. This AS man came for... Well, I can't say revenge, because I didn't kill him. I don't know. Rubbing salt in the wound. Oh, 5 seconds remaining. Anyone gonna come in range? Please? No. I cannot kill anyone in the last second. So, let's see. Ooh, hello. Scouts equipment. How about that one? Yeah. Just a stack of rubles. The smaller stack than the other one. It seems Lady Luck was not on my side for this match. Also, a small thing I should note. It seems a recent addition to the game that in matches in which there are players with a premium account present, it will actually increase the, like, currency revenue of everyone in the match. So that's kind of a cool feature. I like that. Which means that, wow, I've actually received kind of a lot in the way of payment for this match. That's awesome. And assuming my recording has not corrupted, because it has at the transitionary period from menu to match and there again. So, assuming it's working, I can conclude this episode here. I have yet to acquire any of the recently added weapons. As soon as I have, I will likely feature another field testing episode such as this. So until then, that wraps this episode of Survarium. I am Kinsmarck here at Last Level Press, and I suppose, prior to completely concluding, a little final thoughts for each of these weapons. I really like the VZ58, which I suppose I should also point to. Because, again, the elevated irons, which I suppose has more to do with the real-world weapon than necessarily its in-game incarnation, although sometimes the angling of the irons and how close or how far it seems to receive in the render and the animations can have something to do with its performance, as well as its statistical performance. I like. It's comparable to the Valmet, however it is a single tier higher than it, so I can't necessarily compare it, although I can to a limited degree insofar as I can check its stats. So its damage is 30, penetration is 45 as compared to the Valmet's identical stats. However, the Valmet has a slightly lower rate of fire, so that is where it seems the VZ58 really shines, in that it has very ergonomic sight patterns and fires slightly faster than the Valmet, which is likely why it was killing at a considerably, what was the word I was straining for there? Considerably appreciable rates. There we are. And as for the Socom and the HK UMP, for their tier, especially the Socom, seems a little weak, actually, which I wasn't actually expecting. It seems as though its shots aren't really dealing a lot of damage to foes equipped with armor of the appropriate tier. So I may have simply not employed it correctly or against the right sorts of targets, and again, it's probably also my lack of ability to work well with peep sights that I wasn't really acquiring and keeping targets very well. So I might like to see that increased in terms of its punishing power, and I suspect it will perform much more favorably as soon as I mentioned, one can add optics to it, which I hope to see sometime in the relatively near future. So, now that I've actually covered those thoughts, and I appreciate the UMP45 in this game more than pretty much any other in terms of the way its punishing power reacts and the way that its irons are laid out. I can read them more clearly in this game than in the previous games I've encountered it in. I can finally actually conclude this episode, and so don't mind the false start of the previous conclusion. I am Kinsmarck here at Last Level Press, and as always, wish you all good gaming, and Godspeed. Driver, once again the bar. Charles, I swear, have you been hitting the eggnog again? I know it's not Christmas time, Charles. You've been lying to me. Again.